vision for the future of Europe with Russia's migration flows from these oceans too large over journeys. Designed
An investigation is getting underway into a tragedy involving U.S. Army soldiers in Alaska. Raising Jennifer King.
The U.S. Army says two helicopters collided and crashed in Alaska on Thursday. 3 soldiers were killed and 1 was hurt. 2 AH-64 Apache helicopters were based near Fairbanks.
President Trump reacting to word now that his former Vice President, Mike Pence, has testified.
Hey, Andre.
Investigating efforts to overturn
Hello, everyone.
Mr. Trump asked if he was concerned, said, "No, I'm not, and I don't know anything about it."
Okay.
Today, a judge in Utah will.
Hey, how's everybody? We're going to be talking about Emmett Till today.
Set to begin taking effect next week. Planned Parenthood argues that a state law passed earlier this year will effectively end access to abortion in Utah when clinics are no longer able to apply for the licenses they've relied on to operate. The Carolina Panthers chose Alabama quarterback Bryce Young with their number.
No answer from Reverend Tisha Dixon-Williams.
Okay, no, just keep trying her.
It went straight to voicemail.
No, keep trying her, though. She'll be, because she comes up first. Sometimes, people might be indisposed.
Last month, and the
Okay.
industry in general. The AP's done
Thank
more
you.
with what the Federal Reserve is doing today about that issue.
The Federal Reserve today to release the bank that failed set off a review of Silicon Valley.
Reverend Dixon-Williams is on the line now.
Okay, thank you so much. Pastor Williams, how are you?
Good, I'm well. How are you?
Great hearing your voice.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay.
Hours. 2 days later, they Signature Bank of New York.
Myra Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Super spotty rain showers at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high of 60 degrees. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then for tonight, partly cloudy skies develop a low near 41. Saturday, chance for showers and storms, cloudy, high of 63 degrees. Then by Sunday, another chance for rain showers, cloudy, and a high around 50.
Okay, Paul, what time do we come up?
Chicago weather update. Currently, it's
6:09.
Okay, thank you so much.
The sheet metal workers of Smart Local 265. Workers across Illinois shared a victory last November when the Workers' Rights Amendment passed. There are some who believe that this was for the sole benefit of unions. Although unions brought it to the table, we did it for the benefit of all workers across our state. If you work at a coffee shop, a sheet metal shop, or a corporate office, all workers deserve a safe and respectful workplace, a fair living wage to raise their families.
Okay, do you need to hear the pastor so you can make sure that her sound is right?
And a dignified retirement at the end of their working
One moment, I got a switch coming up here.
Thank you.
for those basic rights. This amendment blocks anti-worker legislation that continues to negatively impact families across many other states, including lowering wages and unsafe working conditions. There was a lot of buzz when this amendment was up for a vote, but I believe the real buzz should be now. Let's celebrate a win for the working class. Learn more about us at smart265.org.
Finding great people to hire is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's pretty difficult, right? Well, ZipRecruiter has mastered finding a needle in a haystack, so they take it to the next level. They make hiring so simple that it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. And that's why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Here's what it's like to use ZipRecruiter. They have so many qualified candidates that it's easier to find the right ones for your roles. Those who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do they do it? ZipRecruiter's powerful technology sends you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/FREE. ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
When a child is diagnosed with cancer, the last thing parents should have to worry about is how to pay for it. This is a St. Jude moment.
Calvin got diagnosed June 10th of 2018. He has rhabdomyosarcoma, a soft tissue cancer. One oncologist told us if it was my son, we'd go to St. Jude. And within 24 hours, we were on a plane headed here. It's hard to fathom what St. Jude has done for us. They've really given our family hope. For the donors out there, it's just amazing. I never thought we would be in this place. And it's people like you that help us and help St. Jude provide for a family like ours. St. Jude is like the gold at the end of a rainbow. We are so grateful and thankful for everything.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
This is John Daniel, President and Business Manager of the Sheet Metal Workers of Smart Local 265. Workers across Illinois shared a victory last November when the Workers' Rights Amendment passed. There are some who believe that this is for the sole benefit of unions. Although unions brought us to the table, we did it for the benefit of all workers across our state. If you work at a coffee shop, a sheet metal shop, or a corporate office, all workers deserve a safe and respectful workplace, a fair living wage to raise their families, affordable and expansive health insurance to protect their families, and a dignified retirement at the end of their working career. Unions fight every day for those basic rights. This amendment blocks anti-worker legislation that continues to negatively impact families across many other states, including lowering wages and unsafe working conditions. There was a lot of buzz when this amendment was up for a vote, but I believe the real buzz should be now. Let's celebrate a win for the working class. Learn more about us at smart265.org.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard has led to a lot of firsts for me. The education assistance I received made it possible for me to be the first person in my family to go to school and graduate debt-free. That education helped get me to the first day at my dream job, a job that I can still hold while I serve part-time. That job, plus the other benefits possible from the Army National Guard, helped me become a first-time homeowner. Also, part of my role as a National Guard soldier means I know that I can be one of the first to respond and help my community if disaster ever strikes.
We're coming up in 30 seconds.
Thank you.
And that first step I took by joining the Army National Guard has made all the difference in my life. Talk to your local recruiter or visit nationalguard.com to find out what firsts are available to you in the Army National Guard.
Sponsored by the Illinois Army National Guard, aired by the Illinois Broadcasting Association at this station.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts
All right,
matter.
let's have a great show.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on Friday, April 28th, 2023. It's a joy to be with you today. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. Here at WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Let's talk about Carolyn Bryant Dunham. Who is she? She is the woman whose accusation really set up the murder, the killing of Emmett Till. She died yesterday, but not without controversy. We found out over the past year that the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill have held a memoir in which she disputed her claims from 1955, in which she said, well, things didn't happen the way I said they happened. Could have saved his life. Then we find out that the state of Mississippi, in the basement of a courthouse, had papers that would have indicted her. They did not do that. So we want to talk about justice for Emmett Till today. Justice for Emmett Till today as we watch state killings of young black people and brown people continue. So let's talk about that today. Will there be justice for Emmett Till? We're going to have one of his family lawyers on with us today and a tremendous panel. And you, what do you think about it? Why does this case resonate so profoundly with us almost 70 years later? Indeed, Rosa Parks, I had the privilege of hearing her say to me and to my family that the reason I didn't move to the back of the bus is Emmett Till. When I saw that baby's face in my mind, I couldn't move. I could not move. I couldn't move because he had just been killed about 4 months before. That was December of 1955 when she refused to move to the back of the bus. But of course, August of 1955 is when he was found severely beaten and only heaven knows what else, since it was a sexual crime that he was accused of committing. So we need to talk about that today, everybody. We need to talk about that. So call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, and meet my morning stars on the Santita, Jackson and Friends page. Hey, Paula, how you doing? Hey, Eric. Hey, Andre. Hey, Kenneth. Hey, Barbara Bacon. Hey, everybody. Hey, Jewel up there in New York, sending you all so much love today. Linear Bob. Hey, Sean, how you doing? Good morning, sir. And Michael Ann, hey, everybody, please get on over to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Facebook called me and said that that's what I need to do. Yeah, they will call you when you start getting a lot of traffic. And the Santita Jackson and Friends page is where we are also streaming live. Santita Jackson and Friends is my official page. Please get on over there, everybody. The other pages don't count. So let's get to some of these headlines. Jerry Springer, the iconic talk show host, former mayor of Cincinnati. He made his transition yesterday, 79 years of age. We dedicate the show to him today. Of course, that show was done here in Chicago. He became an icon here, but all around the country. Did you ever see the movie The Circus? It was really, you got a chance to see a different side, a different motivation for him and this show. Indeed, he said, I was trying to show average Americans, with average everyday problems. And God bless him, made his transition yesterday at the age of 79. The Senate investigation into Brett Kavanaugh's assault claims contains serious omissions, according to this headline and this story in The Guardian magazine, and then the Guardian newspaper. And then we find out some of what's happening with the war in Ukraine. There's an investigation in what it calls one of the most blatant examples of the shock doctrine. A new Greenpeace report released yesterday reveals how the gas industry took advantage of Russia's invasion of Ukraine to lock Europe and the U.S. into building new liquefied natural gas infrastructure that threatens the well-being of both frontline communities and the entire planet. You always have to follow the money, unfortunately, with these conflicts, and those are just some of the headlines, everybody. That's the headline that you're not going to hear anyplace but here on the Santita Jackson Show. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 52 degrees. It will be cloudy today. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 50 degrees. It will be rainy. In the NBA, the Celtics clinched their series over the Hawks, winning 4-2, everybody. 128-120. They won that series. Tonight, we'll be watching the Kings and the Warriors. Will the Warriors close it out tonight? The Grizzlies versus the Lakers. Will the Lakers close it out tonight? We will see this evening. Who's going to get that Stanley Cup in hockey? We don't know yet. The Lightning were triumphant over the Maple Leafs 4-2, but the Maple Leafs still lead in that series 3-2. The Devils, well, they lead in their series 3-2, but they had a good one. They shut out the Rangers yesterday 4-0, and the Golden Knights the Jets won. Vancouver, however, clinched their series, everybody, 4-1, everybody. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 7, the Royals 1, the Rays 14, the White Sox 5, ouch, and the Cubs 5, and the Padres 2. We have got some good news coming to us from the anointed pastor of the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, New York. Of course, the author of I See You, Sis. I See You, Sis. Everybody get that book. It's going to really, really bless you. Hey, Tanya. Hey, Joyce. All right. Of course, the Reverend, the pastor, Tisha Dixon Williams. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good morning. Good morning to you and to everyone.
Always a joy to have you. So talk to us this morning. We need some good news.
Always need good news. I think about Diana Ross sometimes. What the world needs now is love and some good.
Oh, reach out and touch somebody's hand. Look, make this world a better place. You can. Oh, my word.
So continuing in the thought on Run, Tell That, and how we talk through what we've just walked through, I'm considering when we're having difficult conversations with someone or making a decision, one of the things that I have found is the best time of day to talk to someone is in the morning. When it comes to talking and conversation, there are three key elements: when to talk, who to talk to, and what to say. And when we consider when to talk, studies have shown that the best time to communicate is early in the morning, which is why you're so pertinent and relevant, Santita, because you catch us early in the morning when our brains are more receptive, before the day has gotten to us, before we're already bogged down with several emotions. You give us information that helps not just guide our day, but guide our lives. Maybe that's why your show is so popular, your wonderful personality notwithstanding. But the exchanges go well in the morning. In fact, experts suggest that when it comes to effective communication, the earlier in the day, the better. And I believe the angel at the tomb serves as the instigator of this instruction, as the women arrive at the tomb early in the morning, inspired to go tell what they experienced. We are better equipped to have critical conversations, address conflicts, and make clear-headed conclusions more in the morning than in the afternoon. Let me help someone. A famous 2011 study by Columbia University on the extraneous factors in judicial decisions found that the likelihood that a prisoner will receive parole depended on the time of the hearing. I'm going to say that one more time. The likelihood that a prisoner would receive parole depended on the time of the hearing. People's cases were heard earlier in the day or just after a break were 2 to 6 times more likely to receive parole, as judges' thinking was more critical compared with those whose cases were heard toward the end of the session or toward the end of the day, as judges' thinking became more measured. I think somebody missed it, so I'm going to say it one more time. The likelihood that a prisoner would receive parole dependent on the time of the hearing could be that the pardon you seek from your problems won't come late in the midnight hour, as we've always suspected, in the late in the midnight hour sentencing, but rather early in the morning hearing. Maybe what you've been praying for late in the midnight hour, while it is heard, maybe the hearing is a little more clearer from God early in the morning. I can hear the psalmist, Lord, in the morning, you hear my voice. In the morning, I plead my case to you and watch. I can hear the psalmist saying, God, thou art my God. Early will I speak thee. I can hear the psalmist saying, weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Now, it's a natural tendency to put off talking about difficult situations or making tough decisions out of fear of how others may react or out of concern that we might lose control of our own emotions and make a knee-jerk reaction. However, the longer we delay complex conversations, the harder it becomes to actually follow through, not to mention the stress and the anxiety in the meantime. Please don't miss this. This could be a key to all of the conversations that you want to have in your life. And the reality is that one conversation could fix everything, and that's the reason we're having it. And so what would happen if we traded a late-night sentencing for an early morning hearing? And that's the good news.
Amen to that. My cousin Maria often tells me timing is everything. And that's why you try to catch people fresh. It's like you're not tainted by the day, right?
Or distracted.
Yeah. Thank you for that. How can we get your book and how can we worship with you on Sunday?
Sure. My book is available on Amazon. I see you, sis, Inspirations from Heroic Women of the Bible, Hidden in Plain Sight. And you can worship with us every morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton. Make sure to subscribe to our channel.
Sending you so much love. I love this woman. She's such an inspiration. Love you, love you, love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for blessing us today. Everybody, we've got Dr. Shanina Knighton with us. Of course, her handle is Hey Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA on social media. Dr. Nina, hey, Dr. Nina, what you want to talk to us about today?
Good morning. So I just want to say, just this reminder that, again, infection prevention and control is not just dependent upon COVID. It's dependent upon us understanding that because we are dealing with, let's say, environmental challenges, antibiotic resistant, organisms, we're dealing with so much that as we start to see conditions come up, such as H5N8, no, I think it's H1N8, no, H5N1. So H5N1 being one, you actually have pneumonias that are actually increasing when it comes to let's say pediatrics. These are conditions that are happening. And as we recall, but it was not necessarily flu season during the summer last year, but that's when we started to see an uptick of RSV numbers. So as I start to think about these conditions, it makes me think about our vulnerable, which would be our babies and our older adults. And so this is just a reminder to individuals that as you're talking to older adults that might be smaller than you, if you're talking to children that might be smaller than you, that stand where it says don't talk down to your children, I'm reminding you to literally not talk down to your children. Talking down to your children may mean that you may see droplets on them, and they may not necessarily be in the best condition to be able to ward off some of the illnesses that you may be bringing them in contact with. So this is just a reminder that as we're looking at, let's say, rare cases that exist of H5N1, whether that's H3N8, whether that's, rare pneumonias that are happening, amongst children where there might be an uptick, it's just a clear reminder that infection prevention and control helps you to stay ready opposed to you having to get ready. And that is something that is going to be essential.
What extraordinary measures do we need to take? You've mentioned children, but what about our elders? I mean, I think about my parents. I've had to have a shift in thinking about them because now my parents are elders, even though their attitudes belie that, because they continue to move and push and be very, very active. But they are our elders, and they are more vulnerable to illness, are they not?
So they are, and sometimes, what people don't recognize is just the whole thing about you getting older or just getting older, we automatically become vulnerable. And that's the saying, something that we use called immunosenescence, and that is just where the natural effects of aging is naturally going to lower the immune system, lower than what it was if you were just, let's say, a regular age adult. What that means is, let's say someone that coughs as an older adult may not necessarily be able to get that good diaphragmatic cough that someone else would being younger. Your lungs tend to have, let's say, less elasticity. We see that happening in regards to why older adults are, let's say, more prone to pneumonia and other things. So you're absolutely right in that aging just within itself can increase your risk for getting germs that can lead to infection. It can lower your immune system just as a result of aging. But I do see that there are ways to make sure that you're protecting yourself. One is cleaning your hands. Two, while I understand that screening, I actually call it screening and distancing opposed to social distancing. And that screening meaning that you are aware and conscious of the company that you keep. So you're making sure that individuals that come around you are not downplaying the cold or downplaying allergies just to be inside, just to be in your presence. Someone being in your presence and wanting to be seen just at one time with you could be very detrimental to your health if you are an older adult. So it's very important that as someone thinks about what should I be doing in order to be able to keep ones around me safe. And as an older adult, what should you be doing to make sure that others are keeping you safe? Is making sure that you're screening and making sure that those that are around you are in the best health condition that's not compromising your health.
So when we, because we see that with children, when we send our kids to nursery school or to daycare, they come home with all kinds of germs. And I wanted to know just really what should we be doing? Because it seems that now that that it's been declared that the pandemic is over, I'm wondering if if you're watching us go back in terms of our preventive practices and what we can do about that individually.
So individually, making sure that you're doing them correctly. I cannot emphasize enough that if you are cleaning your hands and you're not doing it correctly, might as well not do it at all. If you decide that you're going to wear a mask, but you're going to wear it as a chin girdle, then you might as well not wear it at all. It's still a reminder that, yes, while masks do not provide full protection, they do provide some protection against germs that might exist, especially if you are being in a crowded environment. I also know we talked about this too yesterday, Santita, but it's being aware that our skin can pick up what we call exogenous germs or transient germs, or germs that don't necessarily belong to what we call our normal flora, meaning our normal makeup of skin. And so it's being aware of that and making sure that we are cleaning our skin when we do return to our homes. It's being aware of the germs that you bring in from outside on your shoes and understanding people may sit on ground. People may have, let's say, items that may have bacteria on the ground. And so when we drag those items directly into our home, being aware. And then it's also being aware that, yes, we love our pets, but our pets also drag germs into our home as well. Mm-hmm. And so even still, habits such as making sure you're mopping floors and cleaning up your environment is going to be essential to making sure that you stay in the best healthy condition. Remember, there are some conditions humans get versus animals don't get. There's some that both get. Because you don't know, again, I want to make sure that we're normalizing being well by making sure we're doing some of these preventative practices.
Hey, everybody, normalize being well. Boy, what a paradigm shift. If we did that spiritually, physically, culturally, socially, boy, we'd be in a different world, everybody. Go to Hey Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. Follow Dr. Shanina Knighton. You need the practical advice she gives us every day. Let us normalize being healthy. You don't have to get sick. You really, really don't. Everybody didn't get COVID, and everybody who got COVID didn't die. And there is something to be said for that. We have to get our health together, and we're going to work on that, everybody. And when you come back next week, I want you to talk to us about how we can optimize as we go further into infection prevention. How do we optimize our health, Dr. Knighton? What do we eat? Supplements, all of that. We know that the industry for supplements is not as regulated as it ought to be. But there's some things you need to be doing to take care of yourself. We're going to be going over that as we go forward. Everybody, let's talk about Carolyn Bryant Dunham. Sending you so much love, Dr. Knighton. Who is she? She is the woman who accused Emmett Till of whistling at her. That led to his death, and it was a gruesome death. They've never even really told us the details, but one can speculate, given the fact that he crossed the line. He sexually threatened a white woman, so you can only imagine what they did to him. Will he get justice? Because it turns out over the past few years, she said, didn't quite happen that way. He didn't do that to me. The UNC, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, kept her memoir, her confession, and her confession was kept in the bottom of a courthouse in Mississippi. No one's touched her. No one's touched her. She was able to lead a life. Maybe there was some guilt, maybe, I don't know. But she didn't get indicted, which the papers in Mississippi showed that she should have been. She didn't have to confess to the world what she had done to that child. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Let me ask you this, Dr. Knighton, before you go. Is COVID survivable? Dr. Knighton? Ooh. Ooh, ooh. Well, it is. Mostly it is, everybody. And we need to, but it can be a monster. Now, I can tell you that. And my mother had a really, really hard time with it, really. But I didn't have the same experience. And so there's just, there's so much about this that's just so mystifying that we just don't know. But we do know that you need to build up your immune system. We do know that you need to eat healthfully. We do know that there's a lot of stuff that we ought to be doing that we're not doing. Dr. Reverend Tisha Dixon Williams said that COVID is a snitch. I mean, it told us where our healthcare system was. It told us how much we cared for some people as opposed to other people. It also told us about our own baseline health, where we are. Yeah. So it's a snitch. It told the truth, everybody. So everybody, please, let's talk. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let me know what you think about Carolyn Bryant Dunham. What do you think about her? What do you think about the fact that she said, hey, it didn't quite happen the way I said it happened? Right? That's what she did. She said that as she was getting out of here. I think we can feel where we're about to go.
Mr. McKee is on the line.
Okay. Dwight McKee, thank you so much, Paul. Dwight, how are you?
Pretty fair. How about you?
Good. I hope you're doing better than fair.
Fair for me is a good thing.
Okay. Well, no, let's kind of lift that up. So I want you to be doing better than that. So many people need you. Okay.
Attorney Jones is on the line.
Thank you. Attorney Jones, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Santita. I'm well. Yourself?
I hope you're off the floor after I gave you a wife last night. Sorry. You're like, no, wrong person. Oh, man. I was like, Lord have mercy. I almost made him jump out of his skin. Like, no, don't you do that. Oh, that was too rich. Oh, Lord, I said, I'm sorry. Oops.
We're back in 1 minute.
Okay.
Caught me a little by surprise.
You're like, I don't know what you've heard, but that's not true. Oh, man, that is hilarious. Okay, wait a minute. Linear Bob, you said you think getting the vaccinations was a serious dividing line. The people who were vaccinated had a better chance of not being hospitalized with serious breathing difficulties. In some cases, yes. In other cases, no, Bob. And that's, and the fact that we cannot have a fulsome discussion about this is quite disturbing to me, quite frankly. It is. And before COVID, you couldn't have this discussion. I almost emptied out a room when I was talking about a young woman who helped me when I was working at Push. And she said her daughter was vaccine injured.
Stand by.
And boy,
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. I want to talk with you today about Carolyn Bryant Dunham. Who is she? She's the woman at the center of the story of Emmett Till. Only two people knew exactly what happened between Emmett Till and Carolyn Bryant at the time. And now they're both gone. Emmett Till, of course, was killed August of 1955. She just passed away yesterday. Of course, he was the black teenager visiting Mississippi, his family from Chicago. So many of us have made that trek down south. Certainly my brothers, particularly Jesse, Johnny, and I, would spend time in the South with our grandparents, and then later on Yusuf. And my sister kind of missed that. My baby sister kind of missed that. But that's what we used to do. That's what we used to do. And so his mother, of course, had the talk with him about what you cannot do in Mississippi. It still did not work. And she was a 21-year-old who owned a store that black people, that's how they made their profit. They made their profit off of the black people in the community. Well, anyway, there was some suggestion that he had made a suggestive remark to her, maybe even whistling at her, that it was sexually suggestive. And it kept on going from there. When her husband and his brother asked about it, or it blew up, and it completely changed America. And almost 70 years later, it's something that we cannot reconcile. The truth of what happened that August day might not ever be known, but she actually has said what happened. And of course, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill have held her memoirs, and they've protected her. And in her memoirs, she says the way the story was told, it didn't quite happen that way. Her family have been digging, and in their research, they found papers in the basement of a courthouse in Mississippi that showed that she should have been indicted. But the judicial system left her alone. So we need to talk about this today. And of course, we're going to be expanding the panel, but we're going to start off with Dwight McKee, social scientist, and who lived through that moment. I don't know if certainly all of our families were impacted by it. I think of when I talk to my parents, they say, hey, when we saw those pictures, we were never the same. Rosa Parks, I had the honor of hearing her say that when she thought of Emmett Till, she couldn't move off the back of that bus. That woman said that. She said that. And so, let me start with you, Attorney Darrell Jones. What about the facts of this case? Because over the past year, so much has been coming out. You found out that her memoirs were at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So you said, okay, so they're in it. You find these papers in the basement of a courthouse in Mississippi. So you say, okay, the state's in it. She's gotten a lot of protection down through the years. So talk to me. What is this?
Yeah, good morning, Santita. And you're absolutely right. Carolyn Dunham Bryant has received a lot of protection over the years. And, most recently, when the family of Emmett Till went to the courthouse, they were granted permission to go through the archives, and they were able to unearth the document that indicated that Carolyn Dunham Bryant had actually lied, and they could prove it. And they had the warrant that was to be served for her, and then to request the black attorney general that was in Mississippi to execute this unserved warrant, and the refusal to do so because of her age. And it has been such a road to travel, a horrible road to travel for the family of Emmett Till to finally get to the point where you had the document that could bring justice, could bring some peace, could bring some solace, could bring some closure to what happened to Emmett Till to the forefront, and for the system to say, no, we're not going to do it because of her age. We don't want to do it. It's not a desire of can they, because they could. It was the will. They didn't have the will to do it.
Hold on one second. Now, what do you mean they could have done it? They could have done it upon what basis, Darrell?
Well, they could, the warrant that they had for Carolyn Dunham Bryant afforded them the opportunity to execute it, that they could go forward with this and still serve it because of the nature of the crime. The system, the judicial system, the law enforcement system that was there, and the attorney general that was there, elected to not do that. And it was based on the age of that, at the current point of Carolyn Dunham Bryant was the reason that they did not do it.
Well, hold on one second, because I just want to take this apart. So you're saying, am I to extrapolate from what you're saying that there's no statute of limitations on murder, right?
not on murder. And some of the pieces to it vary. The laws vary state to state, but I'm aware of no state where there's a statute of limitation with regards to being part of a murder.
Well, then I have another question for you. Because the state elected to not press her, you're saying to me that indictments are, it seems that to me, and I keep saying this, that they're political in nature, that they're subjective. Is that kind of what I can get from this?
That they're always subjective.
Okay.
You know, the prosecutors always have the ability to bring charges or to not bring charges. It's up to them. That's part of the reason that we push so hard on the voting rights side of this, because generally the prosecutors are elected, and the question is, what will they prosecute, or who they select not to prosecute. And it can be political, or you have many prosecutors that will simply go by the rule of law, and that if the evidence is there, they move forward with it. But it's ultimately up to the prosecutor to decide whether or not to pursue legal charges against someone. It's ultimately the head prosecutor's decision in those situations, in all situations.
Well, because I'm struck by, Beretta, Robert Blake, who it just appeared that he certainly was very, very connected to the murder of his wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife. But that's not on his epitaph, right? And you found O.J. Simpson was not guilty, but in the public square, he's guilty. And there was a sealed document for Bill Cosby. And someone was able to run as prosecutor on that and say, I'm going to prosecute him, even though this was not supposed to be touched. I'm just trying to bring this stuff up just to help me to understand how subjective and politicized this whole process is. There is no purity here, Daryl.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And the Bill Cosby example is a wonderful example. It's a very good example. Because, what happens with Bill Cosby is that they were able to receive, information from Bill Cosby with regards to, what happened with regards to those situations. But it was under the understanding, the agreement, that it would not be used against them. The statements would not be used in the court of law against them. That was the way that they received the information. But again, it's the prosecutor, right? The prosecutor at that time said, we have an agreement. We're not going to use any of the information that you're providing to us against you. A new prosecutor comes in years later and says, you know what? I'm setting that aside. We don't care what that says. We have this information. We have these statements. We're using them against you. We're prosecuting you. And if memory serves me correctly, the prosecutor actually ran on part of that.
He did.
On that position. And it was using that information that he was able to get into office and prosecuted Bill Cosby based on something that a previous prosecutor said would not be used against him. So, it really does undermine the system and the belief of the system, of the legal justice system, because in essence what's happening, you're saying you shouldn't cooperate because you can't believe the promise because the prosecutor may change, and if the prosecutor changes, the old promise doesn't continue, doesn't carry forward. And that's not how this should happen. It should always happen that this is what the system calls for, this is what should be done. I don't care who the prosecutor is. This is what needs to be. This is what should occur. And the Bill Cosby situation and the Carolyn Dunham.
Jamie Foxx.
I'm just trying to figure out exactly what is going on here. I'm trying to, because to me it just seems that this is subjective. That she's been protected by the state. She's been protected by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, one of the most esteemed universities in the world. When I look at this apparatus that protected her, Daryl, and then I look at a Supreme Court that doesn't even answer to a code of ethics. What am I supposed to think of justice in the United States? Help me. You're an officer of the court.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I've said time and time again that if there's an appearance of impropriety, it erodes confidence in our system. And with the Supreme Court, I'm still hoping that Senator Durbin and those that sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee will step in to put in place some structure for the oversight of our Supreme Court with regards to the conflicts of interest that they have with cases that are coming before them. But each of our institutions, whether it is the court system on the legal side or the Department of Justice, we continue to push for them to be to represent equality and consistency throughout. And that's the concern with the Carolyn Dunham Bryant situation, is that when it came to prosecuting some of the Nazi war criminals years later, they were able to do that. But when it came to prosecuting Carolyn Dunham Bryant, that's not happening. And it's that.
And there's no demand for it.
The treatment.
There's no demand for it.
Right, and that's what raises all of the questions. That's what raises all the concerns. That's what raises all of the distrust in the system. We've got to be certain that we hold particularly the elected officials accountable, and those that we put in place to do an equal application of the law. And that's what the concern is from the Supreme Court. That's what the concern is from the Department of Justice. That's what the concern is from all prosecutors that are elected, that we've got to be certain that we hold them to an equal application of the law and that all people are treated equally in the same situations. Santita.
Dwight McKee, why is this important today? I mean, it's just, Emmett Till resonates to me as profoundly today as Emmett Till resonated in 1955. I mean, it prompted yet another exodus of black people from the Deep South. Why is it important today?
Well, it's not important to everybody. It's important to us. It's not important to everybody. Don't be confused by this. It's, I think perhaps the reason that they didn't indict her is there was a fear she wouldn't be convicted. Remember now that her brother and her husband who actually did the murder, they had a trial. And they were acquitted within one day. I think it was like a 3 or 4 hour deliberation, and they were let go almost the same day as the end of the trial, and the evidence was overwhelming, but the racism was more overwhelming because they treated the courtroom like a circus. And they let children in courtroom. They let their children in the courtroom. They let their some dogs and animals in the courtroom. They had blacks sitting upstairs. It was really a folly. And so that same South and some of those same people still function in the South. And I think there may have been a fear that if they would have put on trial, the real racism would have been exposed of the average Southern citizen, the good old boys, who was inclined to acquit her had she been placed on trial. And that may have been what they didn't want you to see, that their racism is still pervasive at that level. Now, the reason it's important for us, because it was a landmark for civil rights, is that I remember Rosa Parks used to say, when she sat on that bus in front of that bus, all she would think about was Emmett Till and what they had done to him. And it really was the impetus for the civil rights movement, because it spurred the whole confrontation of the black community with white racism, and forced guys like Dr. King and Rosie Parks and
Fred Shuttlesworth.
Fred Shuttlesworth to deal with racism heads on, and how pervasive it was in the South and ultimately in the North. And so I think it was important to a lot of white people, because many of them felt compelled to get involved in the civil rights movement. And so some of the black organizations who were looking for justice became fairly integrated, like SNCC in some parts of SCLC, and the Freedom Riders. Many of them got involved because they were carrying the guilt of Emmett Till in their souls, and made them compelled to put their lives at risk to go down south and fight for freedom. But I also think that for many of the white people, they think justice prevail. And their attitude was, these guys were tried, they were acquitted, and that's the end of the story. And that, if he in fact whistled at this white woman, he got what he deserved. Because in those days, it really was against the law, the social law, the social mores for a black boy to whistle at a white woman. And it was not rare that would be the price you pay. I mean, we talked about yesterday about Harry Belafonte, who was a huge star, the biggest star in the black community in those days. And they tried to put him off television for touching a white woman, Petula Clark. Not for having sex with her, not for being in the bed with her, but for touching her while they were singing a song.
A love song.
And this was after Emmett Till. And so this is kind of how that worked back then. Remember now, this was before love, the love case.
Mm-hmm.
So interracial marriage was still illegal back then.
And the Petula Clark, the first interracial kiss on American television, that was in the early 60s. It's just, I'm just, just the subjectivity of it all, Dwight, is what is so galling. I mean, and D-Ray just wrote here, and D-Ray, you need to let me know where you are from. She said she used to see, and clearly she's from the South, she used to see Ms. Carolyn Bryant Dunham. She'd been married to Mr. Bryant, who was tried. She used to see her, she said, out eating barbecue and hush puppies, but she'd be protected. She'd be surrounded by police officers. Dwight. So, I mean, informally, there was the understanding that this woman needed to be protected unto death.
Yeah, and because also they thought they were protecting the virtue of the white woman, which is the ultimate virtue. The ultimate virtue is the virtue of the white woman. I mean, the whole movie, Birth of a Nation, the whole movie is about protecting the virtue of white women. And so they really would think that, they were executing the law and protecting her from people who would, seek to harm her, people who would seek to embarrass her. And by definition, they're going to protect the virtue of the white woman from any situation, from any inevitability. That's, again, what this society is about. And you see that today. I mean, it manifests itself to still live in the spirit of the Karens, who understand that if they cry the right way, that justice will restructure itself around their tears, whatever the issue is.
I mean, there were things about Nicole Brown Simpson that were left out of the trial to protect her. I mean, even though where she was hanging out with known drug addicts, dealers. She had someone who was a drug addict staying with her up until the night before she was killed, who had a huge drug debt on her head. And the woman wrote a book about it, Faye Williams Resnick. It's like, who has someone who's in that kind of financial trouble, in that kind of spiritual and physical trouble, staying with them and their children? It's just, wow. And then, it's just very interesting to me, Dwight and Daryl, how, this was, say, a crime that was sexual in nature. That's what he was accused of being. No one wants to touch what might have happened to him in that shed with those men. Because I think that he was violated sexually, too. But we can't even wrap our minds around that because that's just too much. But I'm like, what do you think they did to him for all that time in that barn? Yeah, you ought to get fired up about that. This was a 14-year-old child and boy. And the state of Mississippi would not allow his mother to bring him home unless she kept the casket closed. They were not going to let her bring her baby home to give him a proper burial. You can't make this stuff up. Right? I got like 2 minutes.
That's correct. And again, it's to guard the reputation of those races in the South, and they understood the impact of what if people saw what they had actually done to this child could be, and it would be a stain upon that part of the South and that part of the community for years and years and years and years. You know, the Tallahatchie Bridge that they threw him off of, for years was a tourist attraction that people would go down south to see. It was like the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Say this is where Emmett Till was killed, and they didn't want that kind of publicity. You know, I always thought that the song Billy Joe McAllister, when he jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge, the part of the reason they used that same bridge was to bring balance to the reputation of that bridge, to take the focus off Emmett Till and what had happened to him on that same bridge. It's people trying to protect their reputation and trying to protect, you know, how the world saw them. They didn't want to be seen as the beast that some of them were. Because again, many of those in the White Citizens Council were the outstanding citizens of the community. They were the dentists and the doctors and
the judges and the police.
Yeah, and the police. Yeah.
I mean, so is there justice?
That's why they want to do it.
Well, I mean, Attorney Darrell Jones, I got about a minute before I go to break. Is there justice for Emmett Till? Can there be?
Well, you know, Santita, yeah, I think that the justice for Emmett Till, while we can't go through the court system and prosecute anyone at this point, I think that at this point the justice for Emmett Till comes by way of legislation. It comes by way of the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. It comes by way of being certain that we go out and we continue to push and register and have voters that put in place prosecutors that are going to fairly prosecute cases. I think that justice for Emmett Till at this point is now on us. It's on us to be certain that our children are treated equally by a system, that our children are given opportunities and are not frowned upon when they're seen. So I think that justice for Emmett Till is now completely on our shoulders to be certain that our children, that all children, particularly African American children, are treated equally and treated fairly. So I think justice for Emmett Till at this point is no longer going to be seen through the justice system, but it's going to be seen through the legislative bodies.
Call me at 773-763-9278. Why do you think this case resonates with some today and doesn't resonate or doesn't register with others at all? Why is it still so important? Let me just declare it. I don't care who doesn't care about it. It's very important to me. You'd never say to other people who seek justice for their people that you should stop. We need justice for Emmett Till, but we also need to understand how the state and other instruments of the state, some of the highest institutes of higher learning, some of the most esteemed, how they protected her. We need to look at how the state protected Carolyn Bryant Dunham, UNC Chapel Hill. We need to look at that. So every time you see an indictment or you decide you're not going to vote for someone or look at someone's television show or whatever because of an indictment, you better think again. Because they're all political. Period. That's it. Mic drop on that. They're all political. You need to figure out why someone is being gone after. Figure out why they went after Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was not just a dancer singer, although he's the best who ever did it. Michael Jackson was also one of the top 3 music business moguls in the world. He owned one of the 3 most valuable music catalogs in the world. Do you think people didn't want it back? They said Wall Street rejoiced when he died. Better think. And what was it, Prince? He died with his masters in his home. He lived with them. Better think, everybody. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. We'll be having this conversation and more at Rainbow Push at our international conference July 15th through the 19th. Go to rainbowpush.org. We need to have these conversations, not for revenge, but for justice. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Ugh. Boy, oh boy. This is a whole lot. We're going to have Jaribu Hill, who's the attorney for his family members, for two of his family members, two of his cousins. So you all hold on. Do you know Attorney Hill, Dwight or Daryl?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well,
we've met several times.
Okay, I was about to say, I would think that you had. Yeah, she's going to be on shortly. Wow, this is a whole lot. I remember the first time I saw that picture, it was so frightening to me. And of course, I saw it in Jet Magazine. And it frightened me to death. I was like, you heard about Emmett Till. But in all of my young years, my parents had never let us see that. They never availed us of the opportunity to see that picture. And oh my gosh. Just seeing him, I literally threw the magazine because it was so frightening to me, because he didn't even look like he was human anymore. Didn't even look like he was human anymore.
Attorney Hill is on the line.
Oh, Attorney Hill?
I'm here.
You know what? I've got Attorney Daryl Jones from the Transformative Justice Coalition here with us right now, and Dwight McKee, who is a top sociologist, social scientist here, and we're going to have Attorney Mark Fancher, but you are at the center of this conversation. We're so excited that you're here.
Oh, it's so good to be on with such really, really good friends. Mark Fancher from National Conference of Black Lawyers. It's great.
He'll
great
be
to
on.
In the community this morning.
Oh, well,
thank you.
Gotta have
Attorney
the community.
Fancher's on the line.
Attorney Fancher has just come up. Attorney Jaribu Hill. Here's Attorney Mark Fancher.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Jaribu, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Better now that I hear you.
Well, brother, it's a storm in many ways here. So there's more than one kind of storm in Mississippi right now. So, yeah.
So you're in Mississippi right now?
Actually in Jackson.
Okay.
And
boy.
getting ready for our Workers' Memorial Day program, which is at 11 this morning.
Well, I'm glad we were able to snatch you up this morning, because it's some talk about all of this. And just to repeat, we've got Dwight McKee with us, social scientist, one of the founding members. You would love this, Attorney Hill, of Operation Push. In fact, he and Aline Walker were the two youngest board members selected when the organization was founded. I think they were both about 17 or 18, and of course you know Attorney Daryl Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and Mark.
Yes, I do.
Attorney Mark Fancher. So I'm so glad that you all are all here this morning. We'll have quite a robust discussion about this. And you can let us know where we are and what we need to do with this, Attorney Hill.
Okay.
This is a whole lot. It's a whole lot.
It is.
Because I had one of my listeners who just said that they used to watch her, Mrs. Dunham, out having barbecue. She said barbecue and hush puppies, but she would be protected by the police.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely has been for what now 67 years, have been protected since 1955.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't name one black person charged with or accused of the crimes that she was, who had a life that she had. You could not name one who had that life.
Privilege is nice.
And
it's unjust. This is
so unjust.
Oh God, this is sick. Whew. Boy, oh boy. All right. Well, we're going to get right to it. Get right to it. Shush. I just needed this today. Oh, boy. Okay. All these things that we've got going on here. Okay. But you all can talk. We're on Facebook Live, just so that you know, Attorney Hill. And we do crosstalk, and so people love the crosstalk from Facebook Live because, everyone's very candid, but I have to let you know that this is where we are.
I enjoy it. I enjoyed it the last time, and I always enjoy people coming on and having comments, raising the issues of the day, and really being real about it. Because sometimes, you're in this bubble of privilege with folks who are cautious and careful, and you look crazy when you put it out there and you try to be real with it. They think you're insane because you're blunt and you put the issues out there. And that's so important that we say what it is, that we name it, and that we name it, but we don't claim it. It's not us. It's not us. Okay, we didn't cause this to happen, but we surely have to not just comment on it, but we got to take action.
Absolutely, even today, and especially today.
That's right, especially today.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Track the timeline of how long this woman had escaped and lived a life of ease after doing what she did. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
You can go through what she
1 minute
did.
away.
Thank you so much. We're inside of a minute before we come back on. As you look at what she did and how she was protected, I think people need to really hear that.
That's right.
And what can be
also,
done now?
Yes. And it's so good that you have us on, because a lot of people thought that she had passed a long time ago. They assumed it because nothing had been done to her, that she was gone. But here she was living her life for 67 years.
I guess because I have her on my timeline, so whatever she breathed, it came up on my news stories. I said, oh, okay, so she has gone on. Yes, Santita's candid. Yes, I am. Yes.
10 seconds.
You can't say everything, but you can think. How about that? Stand by, everybody. We're coming up.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Second hour. Let's talk about Emmett Till, everybody. The woman who fingered Emmett Till, the woman whose accusation got him killed. Carolyn Bryant Dunham made her transition yesterday, but we're talking today about how she was protected by the state of Mississippi, by the state generally, by UNC Chapel Hill. She had a lot of protection and was able to lead a life of ease, even as she raised, as evidence became clear that it didn't quite happen the way she said it. And she said it some time ago. She could have been indicted, but no one decided to indict her because she was a lovely woman with a husband and children. So we got to talk about that. I want you to call me here at WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Everybody like and share. We're on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and on Twitter at Santita J, and of course on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody, please go on over there. Facebook has called me more than once, and they've asked me to ask you to move over there, so please do that. Let's talk about Emmett Till today, why it still matters, and the justice that was not served in this case, and the justice we can get today, everybody. We need to do it, everybody. It is Friday, April 28th, 2023. We do hope that you will come to the Rainbow Push Convention, because we're going to have Attorney Jaribu Hill and others. Of course, she is a lawyer for two of Emmett Till's cousins who have doggedly pursued this investigation, and we cannot wait to hear from her. We're going to have them and so many people at this convention, July 15th through the 19th. July 15th through the 19th. Go to rainbowpush.org and get registered. You don't want to miss it, everybody. In Chicago, we will have a high of 52 degrees. It will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 50 degrees. It will be rainy. And in the NBA, well, the Celtics were able to wrap it up last night, 128 to 120 over the Hawks. And tonight we're going to see what the Warriors are going to do with the Kings and what the Lakers are going to do with the Grizzlies. In the NHL, well, who's going to get that Stanley Cup trophy? We don't know, but they're closing in, everybody. The Maple Leafs lead the Lightning 3-2, but the Lightning won last night 4-2. And the Devils, well, they lead their series 3-2, and they shut out the Rangers 4-0. The Golden Knights were able to close out their series, everybody, over the Jets 4-1, everybody. In the Major League Baseball, well, the White Sox had a tough time yesterday. The Rays 14, the White Sox 5, the Cubs 5, the Padres 2, and the Twins 7. The Royals 1. Former President Mike Pence, according to this CNN report, testified for more than 5 hours yesterday to a federal grand jury investigating the aftermath of the 2020 election and the actions of then President Donald Trump and others, according to sources close to the investigation. The Federal Reserve will release a report today on the findings from its investigation into what caused the Silicon Valley Bank to collapse last month. We're going to see what that means, everybody. It was one of the top banks in the country, indeed in the world. The Biden administration is bracing for a surge of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border when a COVID-era border restriction known as Title 42 lifts next month. And then there is a study that has just come out, an investigation, and what people are calling one of the most blatant examples of the shock doctrine. A new Greenpeace report released yesterday reveals how the gas industry took advantage of Russia's invasion of Ukraine to lock Europe and the United States into building new liquefied natural gas infrastructure that threatens the well-being of both families and communities and the entire planet and makes them a whole lot of money, everybody. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. You got to follow the money when we're talking about peace and freedom and all of those things. Everybody, you know we want you to have financial freedom. And at the core of financial freedom in the United States oftentimes is being out of debt and having a home ownership, which has been declining over the past few years because people are really dealing with economic difficulty. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac understand that. And so they have implemented a program that Team Hochberg wants you to take advantage of. If you are a first-time home buyer, which means you have not owned a home over the past 3 years, you need to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, your trusted local lender, so that you can try to get you a home. Last year, first-time home buyers made up just 26% of that population, down from 34% the year before and down from bigger numbers years before. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they want to turn these numbers around, and they are incentivizing first-time home buyers with substantially lower rates. Now, these rates can be raised at any time, so you need to call Team Hochberg right now to see if you qualify for this program. 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. If you live in the Chicago area and you have a total household income below $105,700, that is, the heads of your household make less than that together, then you might qualify for this program, everybody, if you have not owned a home within the past 3 years. So everybody, come on. Get your chance at getting some generational wealth for you, for your children, for your grandchildren. Remember, homeowners beget other homeowners, everybody. Call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com and get some information. Get some information and call them. You know, I like going online, but you know what? There's nothing like talking to a person. And they have a whole team there waiting for you at 855-56-DAVID. What about Carolyn Bryant Dunham? Wow, many people thought that she had died. No, she was able to live a life of ease, died at the age of 88. As more and more revelations about her role in the killing of Emmett Till has become more clear, even over the past year. It's a story that just will not die, everybody. So joining attorney Darrell Jones, who is the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and social scientist Dwight McKee, affectionately known as Dr. D, is the brilliant, of course, Attorney Mark Fancher, National Conference of Black Lawyers. You got to get his book, The Negroes of Friends Village, everybody. The Negroes of Friends Village. Get his book. But we welcome to the show once again Attorney Jaribu Hill. She is one of the she is the lawyer of the two Emmett Till cousins who have doggedly pursued this case. They came upon these documents in the basement of a courthouse in Mississippi that showed that this woman should have been indicted. But, the state of Mississippi said, we're going to leave her alone. You got to help me. You got to help us to understand this before I spread this question out to Attorney Fancher and everybody else. Attorney Jaribu Hill, who is Carolyn Bryant Dunham? What does she do?
Okay.
Just go help us.
Let's give her historical name, Carolyn Bryant. She was married to a racist murderer linked with the Klan, and his half-brother, Roy Bryant, was her husband, and J.W. Milam was his half-brother. Those two men confessed to the murder, as we all know, back in the trial in Tallahatchie County, in Sumner, Mississippi. They confessed to the murder after they were acquitted. We have to remember the timeline. Once they were acquitted, Look magazine grabbed them for an interview that we will never forget, where they actually admitted all that they did to young 14-year-old Emmett Lewis Till, the bludgeoning and finally the lynching of Emmett Lewis Till. And they got away with it because of double jeopardy, which apparently only applies to certain folks who get away with crimes on a daily basis. And we have other lawyers on the phone, and I know they can join me in this choir, the but-for choir. One of the first things we learned in criminal law in law school was causation, the but-for theory. And we've been saying that since the beginning. We were saying, and we still say, but for the actions of Carolyn Bryant, Emmett Till would never have been abducted, taken out in the middle of the night, and murdered. And we know that that was a race-based murder, and we know that it was a lynching. And so they got off scot-free. They died. Both men died of cancer several years later. They lived full lives as well. But this outrage that we are on this radio station today about is the fact that Carolyn Bryant, the 67 years, escaped justice. And how did she do it? She ran under the shade into the safe haven provided for her by the state of Mississippi. Time and time again, the state claimed that they didn't have the right evidence. They didn't have enough evidence to indict her, that they understood that she was in hospice, that she was ill and dying, and she was old and sickly, had no evidence to indict. Can you imagine that the trail leading to the lynching of Emmett Till started with her and ends with her? And started with Carolyn Bryant and ends with Carolyn Bryant. And she, not only did she escape justice, but she escaped justice with the cooperation and support of the state of Mississippi and the United States government. We cannot forget the two entities that are responsible for this travesty of justice, for this justice delayed and finally denied. Over and over again, they stated in many documents, December 6th, when they closed the case again, when the Department of Justice closed the case again, saying that they could not prove that she lied to an FBI agent. Well, that's what we call a red herring. That was never the issue anyway. The question is, can you link her to the lynching that occurred in 1955? Can you link her to it? Yes, you can. And why have you not been able to prosecute this woman who is so profoundly connected to the lynching of Emmett Lewis Till? So it was intentional, the cover-up, the setting aside of normal regs in terms of what justice is supposed to look like, the double standard that continues to plague our society because of white supremacy, the double standard that we see, how we're treated when we're innocent, how millions of our people are languishing in prisons today because they couldn't afford a lawyer. And so you have innocent people incarcerated, and yet you have this woman walking free. You have this woman walking free. You have children tried as adults for their crimes. And you have a grown woman walking free, able to water her plants and walk her dog and throw barbecues and have police protection, have taxpayers' dollars protecting her while she remains free. And mind you, everyone knew where she was located. So if you or I were in hiding and we were discovered, of course, we'd be dragged in. But they always knew where she was. They always knew where she was, and that's why we kept saying, serve the warrant wherever she can be found, because we didn't want to place it in Mississippi when she had run off to other states, including North Carolina and Kentucky, and circling back and forth to Mississippi whenever she was feeling the heat. She was leaving. She was in Greenville at one point. She was in Columbus, Mississippi at one point, and then she was on the Gulf Coast. Then she started running outside of the state. So she was protected at all times, each time she made an escape. It was not an escape. She was just traveling. She was just traveling. If it was an escape, she should have been caught. But she was traveling freely. She never had to relinquish her passport. She never had to give up any privileges or liberties. And we're on fire about it. And we want to say to folks, especially to the family, especially to Deborah and Terry Watts, and other family members who just pursued this, as you said, Santita, doggedly pursued it. They didn't let it go. Even when some of us were saying, well, you know, it might be over. Mm-hmm. They never accepted that, and they went into that basement thanks to our friend Elmer Stockstill, who's the first Black Circuit Clerk of LaFleur County. Thanks to him, we were able to actually get access to the basement. And Keith Beauchamp did the first round of searching because he's been on it since he's just right out of his teens. He's been on it. Everyone knows about his incredible film, the Untold Story of Emmett Lewis Till, and the follow-up feature that all of us have been screening and going around and talking about how it tells the story and depicts the true story of Carolyn Bryant, the kind of person she really was, instead of this false perception of her and the pedestal that white women constantly are put on, a pedestal of impunity where they can do no wrong, do no harm. Since slavery, this is what our people have experienced, especially our Black men have experienced, the so-called gentility and untouchability of a white woman. And here it is playing out in the 21st century. In full bloom, we are seeing how that protection and that pedestal theory continues to operate today. If she had not been a white woman, if I had committed this crime or any other crime, I'd be either in a jumpsuit or I would have been executed by now. So the double standard in terms of being able to get away with taking a life, being a part of it, being part of the conspiracy that's never been named, being part of the abduction, being part of the lynching, she was a part of it. She started it. She started it, and we got to be clear on that. And she just died yesterday, not 67 years ago. She just died yesterday, and she lived a full life. And we want justice, and we want everyone to know the trail of injustice that we've seen, and we want everyone to know that we can't stop talking about this. We can't stop telling the truth about what actually happened. What did this young boy do? Stop asking that question. Ask yourself the question, why was he abducted in the middle of the night from his great uncle's home and then killed? Why was that's the question? And we know the answer to that, because he was standing and born in black skin. And he was unprotected from the day he was born. No matter how loving his mother was, no matter how protective she was, she couldn't protect him from the awesomeness of white supremacy and hatred that still dwells in this empire today.
We're talking with attorney Jaribu Hill. Indeed, she is one of the Emmett Till family lawyers. Indeed, these two cousins who doggedly pursued this case. I want to know, before we go to break, because I can't wait to hear from Mark Fancher, what did they find? Number one, how did they even know to go to this courthouse and find these documents? What did the documents say? And tell us that. I've got about 3 minutes.
Okay, so they found the actual warrant. They found the probable cause statement. They found what we call the capias, which sets forth the charges. And they found the minutes that recorded the proceedings prior to the indictment. I'm sorry, prior to the warrant being issued.
Well, hold on. Hold on one
found
moment.
in
A
one
warrant
file
for whom? For what?
for Carolyn Bryant, Roy Bryant, and J.W. Milam. They were all named. Now, they named Carolyn as Mrs. Carolyn Bryant in the warrant. Her name is there. And the two men's names are checked off because they were served. Her name was not checked off. And on the back of the warrant, the sheriff wrote in his own hand, could not be found in my county, which is not true. And they didn't look for her, and they did not. And the next thing that was said is that they didn't arrest her. They weren't going to arrest her. They weren't going to bother her. In other words, they said, I'm not going to bother that woman with children. And we continue to say, of course, Mamie Till was a mother with a child, her only child. And so no deference and no consideration for her, only consideration for this white woman who did this terrible thing. So when we found out that, well, first of all, let me just back up for a quick second. I know you only have a couple of minutes, but
Until we
Elmer
go to break,
Stockstill-
we'll get you on the other side. I just I want you to get as much of I want to get as much of this in as we can.
the clerk had said to us that one of the things that would be important is if we could find the minutes, and lo and behold, the minutes were right there with the warrant. The probable cause statement itself is so daunting for that time and day and age, and obviously it was a white male county attorney who said in the probable cause statement that these three did then and there abduct 14-year-old Emmett Lewis Kell. They had his name spelled wrong, and held him against his will. That was in the actual document.
So she
okay?
was in. So she went with them to find Emmett Till. Is that? Am I supposed to extrapolate that?
This is what we believe. We believe that from the very beginning, from the store incident to when he ultimately was kidnapped and lynched, that she never broke chain with it. She was always involved. She was always involved. And whatever she said to those two killers is what led to the results that we are talking about now. So the fact that they felt they had enough on her to name her and to issue a warrant for her arrest tells you that they had probable cause to know that she also equally was responsible. They didn't set her out and say she had a minor role. They put them together as a trilogy. The three of them were together in this crime. And she was just as culpable as those two men. In fact, more culpable because her actions and stories that she told set off the chain of events that led to the lynching.
Because then they go around and they said, was it this one? Was it? She said, no. Was it this guy? No. Was it that one? No. Was this? Yeah, that's him. Right. Okay.
And we also know that they had abducted a couple of other young teenagers because they got it wrong at first. They didn't know who they were looking for. And threw one kid out on the highway while the car was running and threw him out the car because he wasn't the right end. Okay, I don't know if we can use the actual word on the radio.
No.
But know what I mean when I say the N word. Yes. And that is what she called and referred to him. In fact, interestingly enough, in her testimony in court, she said this N man came into the store. Now, he was 14 years old, but she never saw his childhood. She never, and we talk about the adulteration of young black boys and young black girls, how they never see our children as children, let alone see them as human beings. And so she just right away characterized him as a full-grown man when he was a minor. He was a 14-year-old guy.
As they made their money in their store from the black community.
They made their money from black folks.
That's right.
And their store closed down, yippee-yi-yay, after this debacle, this travesty of justice. Black folks stopped shopping there and good for them. And they went out of business because most of their patrons were black.
Talking with attorney Jeribu Hill, everybody, and attorney Mark Fancher and Dwight McKee and attorney Darrell Jones about Carolyn Bryant. I'm with you, because that was her name at the time. Mrs. Carolyn Bryant, the woman who accused Emmett Till of sexually harassing her that led to his torturous death, everybody. Only heaven knows what happened to him. He was accused of a sexual crime, so you can only imagine what they did to him in that barn. You can only imagine it. And I think we need to bring that up, Attorney Hill. Because they
Absolutely.
didn't just beat him. They did only
No, they
God
did not.
knows what to him. And we need to talk about that. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute, July 15th through the 19th. That's why you need to be at the Rainbow Push Conference. Back in just a minute. Yeah, I mean, Attorney Hill, that's why I think you got to tell the whole story. It sounds horrible, but it is horrible. But they did more than bust him in the face. You know that.
And to hear the witness that they called at trial could hear him screaming and calling for his mama. From that barn, could hear him screaming and calling for his mama. The death, as you said, he died an unimaginable death.
And they stretched it out over hours, everybody.
Right. And so it wasn't just about, we're going to teach him a lesson, as they said when they stole him in the middle of the night. We just going to teach him a lesson. No, it wasn't that. They wanted to show us. They were teaching all black people a lesson and sending a message to all black people about the so-called sanctity of white womanhood.
Well, and
there's no sanctity for black womanhood. There's no sanctity for brown womanhood. There's only sanctity in this nation for white womanhood. Since slavery, we know that to be true.
And it's so ironic. Throughout your discussion, you know who I heard from on Twitter? The family of Viola Liuzzo.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Throughout, they kept giving me thumbs up. They kept giving you thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Viola Liuzzo's
I was able
children.
to meet a couple of them in Selma. A few years ago, I was able to meet them in Selma, and that was such an honor because they too have always claimed, the injustice and exposed what happened to their mother.
We need to talk about them because several of them have had some real struggles and they need our help. And so I
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I'm going to reach back out. I'm going to call them today. But
You can
throughout,
imagine that they would. You can imagine they would have struggles because they refer to those individuals who do what their mother did. They refer to them as in lovers.
absolutely.
And often received equal punishments, because they really were meaning to kill both people. The brother who was a voting rights activist and her, they intended to kill them both.
But they killed her and sent those pictures to her family.
Survived and was a witness to the crime, pretended to be dead. So he was a witness to her murder.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Working class woman.
Oh, absolutely. And she was so disgusted by what she saw after they killed Reverend James Reeb. She left her husband and 5 children. She said, I want to go down there and help. And they killed her because she shuttled people back and forth between the airport, which was dangerous duty down there.
Yes, she did.
Yes, she did. She did that.
And drove all the way from Detroit.
Absolutely. And you see her marching. They have 1 or 2 photographs of her marching.
We're back in 1 minute.
She drove by herself. Can you imagine? She drove that distance by herself.
Absolutely. Bless her heart. I'm going to reach out to, but throughout your segment.
Her standing tall. You have her standing tall in righteous dignity, and then you have this criminal who escaped justice for 67 years.
And let us remember Reverend James Reeb.
Let's not forget.
Because he didn't know that he didn't know if he'd get back, and he didn't.
Okay.
He was married with a family too. So we've had all kinds of people in this freedom struggle who took their experiences from whether they were from Europe or wherever.
10 seconds.
And they decided that they were not going to participate in this heinous. In this
Coming back,
heinousness
stand by.
that we're doing. Stand by, everybody. But Mark, get ready.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Okay, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. The Rainbow Push International Conference will be having conversations just like these that we're having about Carolyn Bryant, the accuser of Emmett Till, who should have been arrested along with her husband and her brother-in-law, it turns out. But she was protected by the state. And her memoirs are still housed at UNC Chapel Hill. She's protected.
Right.
Protected. She's just completely protected.
Santita,
Yes, Attorney Jaribu Hill.
can you tell us the call number for the radio station?
Of course.
Someone just texted me from Chicago.
Of course, 773-763-9278. 773.
And the numbers, the call numbers for the station.
And they should just WCPT 820.
Okay, WCPT 820.
AM. It's the largest progressive talk radio station in the country, and I'm so grateful that they give me the space to have this conversation. Let me bring up, you all were so excited to hear that each of you, that the other was on today. Attorney Mark Fancher, what are you hearing? Ooh.
Well, I'm hearing some gospel truth from Attorney Hill, and as a revolutionary, I'm just driven to try and to transform what is a supreme negative into a positive. And I think if anything that comes of this, it helps us to understand that this is bigger than Carolyn Bryant, it offers us an opportunity to raise the level of consciousness of the masses of people and to help them to appreciate in a real way the fact that this country really is and has been at war against African people. It just really has been. And it's not just people like Carolyn Bryant. It's not just people who are working class and poor people of the kind who lynched Emmett Till. It is the government of the United States. It is the multinational corporations. We have seen time and time again how cases that involve the horrific killings of black people have been neglected. There have been decisions that have been made not to prosecute, even in the face of overwhelming evidence. I return time and time again to the case of Milton Hall, who was a 49-year-old homeless black man who had mental health challenges, who in Saginaw, Michigan, was executed firing squad style by 8 police officers in full view of a dashboard camera. And it's a graphic murder of this man who was helpless and who just had to look as 46 rounds were fired into his body. And even with that evidence, the local prosecutors, the Justice Department, nobody decided to bring criminal charges against these officers. And so it's a continuing thing that happens. It's not something that's limited, to 6 decades ago. It's something that goes on now. And very often these decisions that are made not to prosecute are based not on the horror of the crime, the need for justice for the victims. They're calculated decisions that are based on things like budget. If we're not going to prosecute the officers who killed Milton Hall because we have a limited amount of money that we have for these types of prosecutions, and so we won't do it. Or we think that if we prosecute, it's going to cause destabilization within the country among the white population or white workers or whatever it may be that they're thinking about. But certainly they're not thinking about what's in the best interest of the black community or people who are victims of white supremacy in this country. And so I think that if nothing else comes from this, it helps us to once again understand exactly who we are within the context of America. Hopefully, it will cause more of us to decline to shed tears when we hear the national anthem and to claim that our blood runs not red, but it also runs white and blue. It will help us to really begin to understand that we need to seriously look at the global context into which all of these things fit. Because the fact is, we're dealing with the lynching of one young man and the injustice of those who are responsible for his lynching not being held accountable, And even to the extent that they were considering holding them accountable, it wasn't to the degree that they should. I mean, the talk was always, if charges were brought against Carolyn Bryant, it would be for manslaughter. Come on, give me a break. I mean, this was, in the nature, it was equivalent to a contract killing, where she made the decision that she's going to finger somebody and get somebody to carry out the murder on her behalf as her proxy.
That's right.
That is not manslaughter. I mean, that's first-degree murder. So we understand that what's happening here is so unjust, just from the beginning to the end. And we need to focus not just on trying to get justice in individual cases. We certainly need to do that. But we also need to think broader about the implications of all of this and how it all fits. Because, you know, in the news segment that you did earlier, Santita, you made reference to this shock doctrine scheme where multinational corporations are making plans to profit from the destruction in Ukraine.
Oh, they've already done it. That was the whole point. Well, we cannot even hear Seymour Hersh's story about us blowing up Nord Stream. You know, blowing up their economic opportunities. I mean, really? And before you call me pro-Russian, stop it. Just stop it. Don't you just want to be right? Don't you want to be on the right side of history? Don't you just want to be godly? Y'all, really? Just stop. Stop it. Because ultimately, that's what we're talking about today, Mark, and Attorney Hill, and Attorney Jones, and Dwight McKee. The wickedness has to stop.
And it's all part of a comprehensive system. You know, the lynchings that are permitted of our people are one aspect of it, but the shock doctrine is another aspect of it. You know, we're talking about global capitalism, imperialism, working its way down to individual injustices. And so the more that we rise in our level of consciousness and our thinking, I think the better off we are. And I think that to the extent that we're disturbed, that's probably too tame a word for how we feel about Carolyn Bryant and the fact that she went to her grave without having to face charges. We also have to be mindful of the fact that some evil is just so evil that it defies earthly punishment. And, you know, while certainly she did not face any type of consequences from the legal system here on this earth, we can only imagine the extent to which God troubled her conscience, the extent to which she lived in a certain degree of misery. And if she didn't while she's alive, then certainly now she's being held accountable for the great evil that she did. And I think that if nothing else, we can take some comfort in that.
Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
Well, I also think that the unspoken part of that is she did serve a role. She played a role in white society. And that role was to establish value of white women virtue. Is that in a two-tier system, you need to be able to see one person, one people, as more superior, as more sacred, as more dignified as the other people. Dick Gregory used to talk about black women, white ladies. It's a very deep concept. That there's a certain virtue, there's a certain sanity to white women that is next to the Mother Virgin, Mother Mary, and its perception of hierarchy of sacred images. It is the Virgin Mary, who was always depicted as white, with her sacred child being next to the Son of God, the child of the Son of God. And in that hierarchy, right underneath her, are all of the white women who reflect that image. And it uncoils all the way down at the very bottom of the rung to the black man. And so the purpose that she served in this was to set a bar that a black man, they used to call it reckless eyeballing, that the white women are so sacred and the black man so depraved that they didn't have the right to look at a white woman. you were supposed to turn your eyes when you walk down the street to see it. And it set value. It created a hierarchy of value that white women have to this day. To this day, white women don't have the death penalty. To this day, white women get less time than anybody else for crime. I mean, just last week, the policeman who killed the young black man, shot him in the head in front of the whole world on a traffic stop. She got 16 months, and she's out of jail and living that kind of life. And the subtext of all of this is we think that's normal, that it's very, very deep. And when she killed the white woman that killed the young man down in Texas, and even his very brother felt more sorry for her than he did for his brother who got killed by her.
Oh my goodness!
That thing psychologically and sociologically plays itself out as polypuberty. It's the secret white woman who has to be saved at all costs, and against everybody else, and what their relative value and what they're worth to society. It is extremely, extremely deep.
Well, the tragedy is it's normal. We think it's right. That's the psychological break. It's normal. It's just wrong, and we think it's right. That's where we got some problems. Before I pivot back to you, Attorney Hill, Attorney Darrell Jones, what do you have to say? A lot has been said here.
You're right, Santita, and Jaribu always brings it, as does Dwight and Mark. But I tell you, one of the things that I think that that I want folks to pay attention to very closely is that there's a through line that's here, and we started with the death of Emmett Till by the vigilantes, if you want to call them that kill Emmett Till. But that through line then goes and brings it forward. Trayvon Martin, same thing. It goes through Ahmaud Arbery, same thing. So it's a continual thing. And now, and Jaribu hopefully will speak to it at some point, you have Rasheem Carter that's there in Mississippi that was killed and dismembered, and they still haven't done any investigation to bring anyone to justice, as I understand it in that case. There's a through line that's there, and we've got to be mindful that we've got to hold people accountable. We've got to be, in the forefront of being certain that justice is served. We shouldn't have to have that role in terms of being certain that our citizens are cared for, our people are watched out for, but it's the role that's thrust upon us, and so we've got to be certain that we continue to push forward. I always give a lot of credit to Emmett Till's family because it was their persistence that came up with the arrest warrant. It was their persistence that kept them in the front of all that's going on. And so we've got to be certain that we're in alignment with that persistence and being certain that justice does come and is received and is provided for all of us that are Americans that are here. I hear Mark talk about the red, white, and blue and bleeding red, white, and blue. I get it. It's not a perfect country, but it's a country that we're pushing toward perfection and toward correction, and we've got to be certain that we take every step to be certain that happens, Santita. So it's that through line that we've always got to remember that Emmett Till may have been August 28th of 55, but Rasheem Carter was, 2022, if not 2023. So we're still here, and we're still dealing with the issue, and we've got to be certain that we continue to lift it up.
Attorney Hill, and I thank you all for your comments. You just shook something in me. I remember during my father's our 1984 campaign, because it wasn't just his, it was ours, right? Because it was a people's draft.
Yeah.
My mother came back. She was his top surrogate. And she came back, and they were based at the Howard Inn, as you remember, in Washington, D.C. And it was great because I was at Howard, so I got a chance to, I saw my parents a lot anyway, but I got a chance to see them all the time, which helped to allay a lot of my anxiety about all of these assassination attempts and threats that we were dealing with on a daily basis. which we'd been doing anyway, but it was just amplified when he ran for president. My mother came back from one of these trips very, very pensive, everybody. She said, I had an experience that, even though we don't have money and all that, she said, but we never have had that. She said, but let me tell you this, there's a man who I met who's going to make me keep on running, and I couldn't wait to speak to your father about this. My mother went to one of these churches, and in many churches, Attorney Hill and Gentlemen, a woman can't be in the pulpit. No mind, this gentleman, this pastor was kind enough to let my mother come into one of these little churches in the woods, because most of us live we don't live in urban America. And so my mother went to one of these churches, and all these people were lined up outside. All these day workers, field workers, basically sharecroppers, just folks who had heard that Mrs. Jesse Jackson was going to be there, and they just wanted to give 5 cents, $1, anything. And they just wanted to see her because they couldn't believe it, And as she ended her remarks, we used to stand at the front of the church or at the end of the church, and everybody in the church would come and shake your hand. And this man walked up to my mother and he shook her hand and he said, let your husband know that he's running for my baby. And my mother said, sir, what is your baby's name? He said, my baby's one of the 4 little girls.
Oh, my goodness.
And my mother just stopped. He said, so she's running for all of them. And I hope that we understand that no matter what it is that we do, no matter where we are placed, that we're all working for each other. We're inspiring each other. We have to do this for Emmett and for your children. That's why I said, we got to spotlight. There are a lot of things we could talk about today, but you got to talk about this. You got to look at how the state protected Carolyn Bryant, how UNC Chapel Hill, one of the most esteemed schools in the world, that would not let Nicole Hannah-Jones come there today. Now she's at Howard, thank God. They are protecting her today in death. They have her confession, and they won't release it. The state of Mississippi were going to arrest her. They won't talk about it. You better talk about it. You saw someone put their knee on a man's neck and choke him for 9.5 minutes. Does that not matter to you? Attorney Hill, why is this important for us to deal with today?
Yeah. And I'm thinking about all of what has been said by my brothers. And I remember what Mark said about, the systemic nature of this.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that we don't place it into context, and often we look at these isolated incidents, and even when the cops try to do their bad apple narrative, oh, that was just a few bad cops. And even there was so much ridiculousness going around the brother Tyree Nichols. They even talked about how a couple of the cops might have been members of Omega Psi Phi, and we hope that's not true. We hope they're not accused. People are clueless as to how the system works and how these agents of the system come in all colors, and they stand ready to protect white supremacy. And that's what neocolonialism is. That's what our oppression, sometimes we see that even more starkly than we see the actual white foot on our neck. We see these race traders who come about and get power because we elect them, because we put them in these positions. And then as soon as we put them in the position, they can't get elected without black people voting for them in Mississippi. We put them in these positions, and then they're the ones who stall and delay justice. And they're breathing a sigh of relief now. Now that she's dead, they don't have to deal with Charibu and Deborah and Terry Watts and Keith Beauchamp and all the other fighters who are insisting on justice for Emmett Till. They think that they don't have to deal with us again. They are mistaken. They're mistaken because we understand as revolutionaries that it is the system. We were chattel. We were property when we were brought here against the will. That was the first felony kidnapping. And then I would submit to you, and I wish Mark would weigh in on this, I would say that the charge should have been felony murder. Because when you commit a felony and it ends in a person's death, that's felony murder. And I wonder if that was an operation, if that actual crime was an operation in 1955. Some version of it certainly was. And why is it that they never addressed the issue of her crime causing the death? And there's no expiration on warrants in Mississippi. There's no statute of limitations on kidnapping or murder. Yet they continue to say it was all about the statute of limitations. The statute that was used at that time, that was applied at that time in 1955, was silent as to kidnapping. Didn't even mention the crime of kidnapping in the statute. So this notion that there was a statute that kept them from acting, that is just really legally not true.
Oh, look, these people bend the law, they bend the rules, they do whatever it is that they want. Come on now. I mean, really. And, let me just say this, because we talked about this during the break, and I want to say it on the air. While Attorney Hill was speaking in the last segment, I tweet all of these stories out, everybody, and people participate with us on Twitter at Santita J. She was receiving support from Viola Liuzzo's family. The white woman who left her, she didn't intend to leave him forever, but she left her husband and 5 children. He was a union leader. She went down to Selma because she was so appalled by what was happening to black people down there. And she told her children this. And she was murdered down there at the end of the Selma to Montgomery to March. And they have been supporting us today and just letting us know by retweeting and giving you a thumbs up. And they've just given you some more love, Attorney Hill. And I just felt that it was important to say that because we have solidarity. There's some black people who want to keep you on the plantation, and there's some white people who want to free you. And we have to grow up in our politics and understand that this is a system.
Exactly. And we have to look at both a race struggle and a class struggle because you have these people in the so-called high places, and you're never going to be in a high place. Let me just send a message out to you if you think you have arrived. Okay, you're never going to be in a high place under this system.
Well, what did Jackie Robinson say of his life?
With the rest of us.
Well, Jackie Robinson's memoir said it all. He said, "I'd never had it made."
Right, how about that? And I remember he used to talk about the tall cotton.
Yes.
All of us are still in the tall cotton.
Well, you know what? I've got 1 minute before we go to break. But you know what? I want you, Attorney Fancher and Attorney Hill and Attorney Jones and Dwight McKee, to give closing remarks on the other side. I want everyone to meet us at Rainbow Push tomorrow at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time at 930 East 50th Street. But also, please, July 15th through the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. We're going to be talking about this. I was talking with Attorney Hill about gathering all of us to have a discussion about all of this. July 15th through the 19th. Attorney Hill, I'm going to give the final minute to you.
Okay, well, I just want people to know, as my brothers have said on this call, on this radio, this wonderful, incredible platform, thank you, Santita, for making this possible in the tradition of your dad and your mom and all the freedom fighters. Thank you. And so for us, it just means the struggle continues. It means the struggle continues. It means we lift up the names of those who have been victims of the most heinous crimes that have ever been done to people and unprosecuted, unpunished for what they've done to our people. Emmett Till is a symbol of that from 1955 to now, but he is not the only one. We have modern day 21st century Emmett Till and 4 little girls that we have to lift up constantly and make sure that our lives matter beyond the slogan, that our lives matter beyond some of what I call the hearse-chasing type lawyers who grab families and get on screen and do that. That's not the kind of lawyer that I am. That's not the kind of lawyer that Mark Fancher is. We're freedom fighters. We studied and learned under the best, like Chokwe Lumumba, for example, and other freedom fighter lawyers, Evelyn Williams, who's auntie of Assata Shakur. That's who we learned under. And we know what's at stake for our people, and we know that this system is unworkable. It's unworkable because of the way it started.
Hold that thought.
The lack of overhead. Lack of overhead is the way it started.
Hold that thought. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and Santita Jackson and friends, everybody. Going to get closing thoughts from everybody. You know you don't want to miss this. Share the show, everybody. Love you so much. God bless you, and keep hope alive. But continue. We're still on Facebook.
So listen, do you still need me? Because like I said, we got this program today.
Yeah, well, I want you to give your closing thought, but I'm going to reach out to you for Sunday as well.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so but give us a closing thought, if you will.
I'll stay where I am to do closing thoughts. Could I go first then?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, but this has just been always an amazing experience with you, sister. Anyway.
Oh, I love you.
And one of my Delta sisters is.
I am your Delta sister. What are you talking about?
Oh no! What are you saying to me? What?
Girl, you better get on out of here. Yes.
What?
Boom.
Oh, no.
How about that? 40 years in.
I heard you say you went to Howard.
42A83. That's me. Yes.
And look, my granddaughter just followed in her mother's footsteps, Beta Alpha,
All right.
at FAMU. We just went to her initiation on April 2nd.
All right now. March 19, 1983. Come on, yes. What? My father's a Q. What else am I going to do?
On board? Shoot, we need to do something. We need to do a panel.
Come on now.
One of these conferences or conventions.
Yes.
I'm serious.
Yeah, I mean, come on. What else am I going to do? My father's a Q. What? And my father actually ran against Governor Wilder to become the national vice president of the Qs when they were in college. And that's how.
Wait a minute, was Wilder a Q?
He's a Q.
Wilder was a Q?
He's a Q, and they ran against each other to become the second Grand Basilisk, and Dad won. And you can't make this stuff up, everybody. You cannot make it up.
I didn't know that Governor Wilder was a Q. I don't think they ever mentioned that when I was supporting his campaign. I didn't remember that.
As he said, wow. I am an Omega man.
How about that? And look, on campus, Omega man.
Come on.
I didn't wait till I was 60 years old to become a Delta.
Well, now that's all right. We're not mad at those who waited. Even though
we're not bad. We're not bad, but there is that history.
There is
of being a member of a black organization for decades.
Oh yes, and looking crazy for about 5 or 6 weeks on the campus.
Okay. Oh my God, I'm not even going to talk about ours. Was 28 weeks. We went online in April, and we didn't go over until November.
I couldn't have done that.
I'm telling you, they were crazy. They were insane.
No. Yolanda, sending you much love, Soror. Boom. Yolanda Tolson. Ooh, to you, girl.
I should have known. I should have known that. I should have just picked that up.
Yes.
Wow. Amazing. Yes, so she texted me and wanted to know the call number, the radio station letters. And I did. I texted her that because she said she was going to tune in. And she does live in Chicago.
Sending Janet Sherwood Sussman much love, said Panhellenic Sisters Unite. All right, girl, sending you much love, girl. Boom, boom.
I love it. Make sure you tweet out that we're Delta sisters.
Of course I will. Yes.
We're going to get so many positive responses from that. But I am blown away by Viola Liuzzo's family's tweet. Oh my God. I am blown away.
Absolutely. But they tweeted and they got in touch with us through. So I'm going to reach out to them when I get back in this afternoon, because they're wonderful people.
I'm telling her right now, her name is Helen Arnold. I'm telling her she's a soror, because she said, thanks for tuning me into Santita's show. I'm saying she's a soror, okay?
I am.
I'm texting her back this. Wow. My goodness.
I am.
Girl, everywhere we go. I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, speaking for their king. They have a Martin Luther King thing every year, which is incredible, right? So I was the keynote for that particular one, and it was a soror who invited me. And afterwards, this young lady came up. The young lady who was the MC was like an anchor for a local Knoxville TV station, right? And she said she kept staring at me throughout the session. And so she comes up to me afterwards and she says, you look like my line sister at FAMU, Beta Alpha. She said, are you? I said, Tangemanan Hill Knight. She said, yes. Are you? I said, I'm her mother. She said, what?
Get
she said,
out.
you look just like her. She looks just like you. That was so wild. That
Get
out. She looks familiar. And then lo and behold, she pledged with my daughter. at
Oh
FAMU.
my gosh, get out of here. I love it.
Too small. The world is too tiny. It's too tiny. It really is.
I love
It is
it.
just too tiny. But I should have known, girl, the way you handle your business, I should have known.
Thank you.
I should have known. My
Thank you.
goodness, wow. This is such a privilege,
Thank
such an honor to be connected in this way to such a rich legacy in history. And you carried it on. Unlike some folks who have famous revolutionary parents and they became Negroes, you stayed true. You remained true as a Black woman. You are Jacqueline. You are Jessie. I love it. This is incredible. I mean, it's so refreshing. You don't know how refreshing it is. Because sometimes people say, I'm not my father. And I say, why not? Why aren't you?
Maybe it's too heavy a load. You know, I will say this. I've been, I will say this. I've been very blessed, and I've known Dwight since I was 2, literally. And my parents are really special people, and fortunately, they've stayed together. There was also there's always been, it's been very interesting to not see the civil rights, build dynasties, if you will, for want of a better term. And it's almost been by design. And it has been said that that is what J. Edgar Hoover wanted to disrupt. He didn't want there to be yet another generation of freedom fighters coming from our parents.
No,
And
he was
you can see it.
determined for that not to happen.
You can see that.
He
You can
was
see it.
determined.
And my mother was determined for the opposite to happen. Because she used to
Right,
tell us
exactly.
that. She said, no. And my
Exactly.
father would say that. If something happens to me, I expect you to get up and keep on going. And so that was kind of
That's
pounded
what you
into
done.
us. Yep. It
That's
was.
what you're doing. That is what you are doing.
Oh,
So
boy.
I am so, and I love the brother. Oh my God, Brother McKee.
Dwight McKee, Attorney Jones.
Oh, but no, Brother McKee was like, I could listen to him in the keynote. That boy is bad. Oh my God.
You got to watch him. I have to keep the mute button.
Oh, he's
Attorney
dangerous.
Hill.
He's dangerous.
He is. That's right.
He's dangerous.
You still there, Dwight? He's frightening.
I'm still here.
He's frightening, and in more ways than one.
You are dangerous, okay? You are dangerous.
He's frightening.
Thank you.
And that history of white womanhood needs to be shouted to the rooftops because some of our confused brothers, they still don't get it. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, Lord, have mercy. Well, you know what? I'm going to get closing thoughts from everybody because you know what? You're making me have a think because I'm going to see my father not too long from now. And I want us to do this at the convention. Certainly, I want us to do it on Sunday, Attorney Hill and Mark, if you have any time, and Dwight and Attorney Jones. But we've got to do this at the convention because we have to keep the story alive. You know?
Yes, no doubt.
We really,
No
really
doubt.
do. So why don't you give us a word before you go? And please give my love to the family, to everybody today.
I will do that. And I just want folks to know we are remembering today is Workers' Memorial Day, and we are remembering workers who died while trying to make a living. Disproportionately, black and brown workers are given the most dangerous and the most dirtiest jobs, and they die while at work trying to make a living. And so every April 28th or even the week preceding, now they have the Workers' Memorial Week. And today is actually Workers' Memorial Day, and we will be at the state capitol having a rally. For the first time since COVID, we're back out in person for this rally. We've been doing our dark work, devalued, and unprotected platform on Zoom, but we are back out in the streets today from 11 to 1 at the state capitol in Jackson. And our guests on that program include the children of Wallace Jackson, who was a brother who was secretary-treasurer of the NAACP and a voting rights activist who was murdered when a bomb was placed under his car for refusing to step down from a promotion that had been traditionally given to white men at his plant where he worked. And when he refused to do that, they murdered him. They bombed him to death. So for us, today is very special. We are thinking about workers who are being treated even today as cargo and as chattel, as furniture and property. And we know in the state of Mississippi and all the Black Belt states that that is still true. In the North as well, we see Jim Crow cropping up from New York City to Jackson, Mississippi. We see the remnants and the actuality of slavery. And we are fighting it. We are trying to stand up as freedom fighters in the tradition of your dad and your mom and all those freedom fighters who said, don't stop, keep going. That's what we have to do. So I thank you. It has been an honor, an extreme honor to be on this platform today with these courageous revolutionary lawyers, these brothers, in particular, Mark Fancher, that I've known for so long, and he's always been consistent. He's always been steadfast and true. And I just honor and appreciate you so much, brother, and all of you all on this call. So thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of this, and I look forward to stop. And I will send your message to Deborah Watts and Kerry Watts. They are modern-day heroes who won't let this thing go. And our brother Keith Beauchamp, I will send your message to them as well.
Let's do that. I'm going to circle back with you later because we need to do this at our convention. We really do.
Okay, perfect. And if Sweetie's the pot to know that we are Delta sisters.
Come on now. What?
I had
What
to get that
else?
out there.
What else? What?
I had to get that out there.
What? What else? What else am I going to do?
Reason why I know to you, Santita. That's the reason. Without even knowing, that is the reason why I could never say no.
Oh, what? What else? What else? What else am I going to be? I'm held up. What? Thank you.
But you all stay strong, and I will be talking to you later today, Santita. Just reach out to me for next steps and whatever you need me to do. You know you got me.
I'll call you a little bit later.
Okay, love to you all.
I love you. And everyone, please send some love to Stanley Davis. I am seeing our dear brother. He is at Stroger Hospital. Didn't know that you were there, Stanley. You need to let people know. Sending you so much love. Sending you much love, everybody. Sending you much love. How's the food over there? Let me know what's going on. I want to know how you're doing.
Take care.
I love you so much. I'm going to get closing thoughts from everybody. Attorney Darrell Jones, if you're still there, he might have had to go to court. Y'all are all working lawyers. Attorney Jones, you still there? Attorney Fancher?
Well, I'll just say very quickly that, it's ironic that Viola Liuzzo's family called in because I think that ultimately this is what it's all about. I think that the ruling class in this country has always had a very tenuous hold on the working class white population. And they have had to do what they needed to do in order to hold their allegiance. And that means protecting them and shielding them in situations such as those that Carolyn Bryant found herself in, because they don't want them to become Viola Liuzzos. Mm-hmm. They don't want them to wake up and to become aware and to recognize that they have their interests are much more closely aligned with those of black people or other struggling, oppressed communities in this country. And so I think that that's really what it sometimes comes down to, that, we need to hold on to them. We can't turn them into a revolutionary force that's going to come after us, because they know that what happened on January 6th is what the possibility is. The problem with January 6th is that the people who became militant were totally confused and misdirected and had no analysis, no clarity or understanding about the real source of the pain that they were trying to address. If these people get straight in their thinking, you can imagine what that level of militancy could mean for those who really control things in this country. And so when they get in trouble, especially when their trouble involves hurting us, in some way doing an injustice to us, then the state has to come to their support. And I think that ultimately that's what this comes down to.
Amen. Dwight McKee?
Well, we have to be very conscious of the subliminal ways that it plays itself out in society. The elevation of the white woman, the polypubescent thing. So what you have is you have a situation where the top golfer in the world worth $1 billion will be seduced by a blonde babysitter, as if, somehow that they are socially equal, or a top football player who is a Heisman Trophy winner will fall in love with a blonde woman who is selling jewelry, and be captivated by them, as if somehow they have something in common, other than the fact that she has been socially elevated and psychologically elevated in his mind, his worldview. So somehow he feels like that he's getting a prize, even though they have nothing in common. That thing really played itself out, with the black quarterback and the white cheerleader, as if somehow they're equally yoked. Even though most of what they're bringing to the table is their whiteness and their blondness. And so it's a real subliminal subtext to that white lady, black woman thing. And why it's very hard for black women to compete with, quote unquote, the white lady for even the access to their own men as they become more successful and become more qualified. I mean, if you really want to understand how this thing played itself out, all you have to look at is the black guy on the Supreme Court and the woman he married, and how almost bizarre that relationship is. This guy is, even if you don't like his politics, he is allegedly a legal scholar and a Supreme Court justice. And the white lady he's married to is, without being negative, almost trailer parkish in her carriage, in her attitude, in her personality. And yet somehow he feels like he has the prize in that relationship. That thing is very, 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 very deep.
Well, bless our hearts, because here we are. Here we are. And what did, I think, was it Einstein who said everything as of this day after they dropped the atomic bomb, as of this day, everything has changed but our thinking? Our thinking has to change, everybody. It really, really, really does. Who we are, who we want to be, and more than that, who we need to be. Think about that, everybody. Think about that. And think of Emmett Till. Think of Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley. Think about her. Think about so many of these mothers who've had these broken hearts, and fathers. He wasn't an amoeba who split. His father had been killed. Many allege he was lynched during the Second World War. His father was a veteran, was a soldier in the war. So it's something for that is Emmett Till. So we need to, we have to get right, everybody. We have to get right. Let's get justice for Emmett. Let's do that. The UNC Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, they need to release her memoirs right now. That's evidence. We need to see the documents that the state of Mississippi kept hidden for almost 70 years. We need to see why she was supposed to go on trial along with her husband and brother-in-law. We need to know that. Eventually, if we do not correct this injustice, while it looks black now, it will eventually fade to white. Trust and believe. That is the way it works. So we gotta do right, everybody. Do right. And my grandmother Gertrude said, there's one way, it's the right way. That's it. The way is straight and narrow, that's it. Now, you know, America's been blessing God. Now, God needs to bless America. No, God has blessed America. Now, America needs to bless God and get right. Now, let's do that. Let's do that. Come on, y'all. We got to do right. I love you. I love you, Dwight. I love you, Mark Fancher. I love you all. I love my morning stars. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow at Rainbow Push. And then tomorrow afternoon, I'm so honored that, thank you, Dwight, for helping me to connect with Reverend Dr. Hatch. I'm going to see Reverend Dr. Warnock. Senator Reverend Dr. Warnock. Or Reverend Dr. Senator Warnock. Or Reverend Senator Dr. Warnock. You know, ecclesiastical titles eclipse all others, so Reverend Senator Warnock. That's what I'm going to do. Can't wait to do that. But I love you all, love you all, love you all, love you all, and thank you so much. What a day, what a day. Like and share the show, everybody. Like and share the show. Let everybody know about it. And I'll see you on Sunday on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. God bless you, everybody. God bless you, Dwight, D. White, Dr. D. Love you all.